Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, and welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. Today, part 2 of my interview with Giovanni Marsico. And again, if you didn't hear me say this on part 1, this man, as soon as this was done, I called him right back and asked if he would consider to become my mentor. I thought that highly of him. And again, we start part 2 with the greatest lesson learned from the mastermind's experience that he's had. We look at a quote that changed Gio's life, which I absolutely love the quote. If you actually saw the graphic on YouTube, you'll see what the quote was. We talk a lot about philanthropy and how to embed that into the business model, not think of it as an afterthought. And then at about the middle of this, you're going to find a very, very funny, heartwarming interlude. I'm not going to ruin the surprise, but somewhere in the middle, hopefully some of you guys will get a kick out of that. And then we also talk about a very interesting topic that Gio had learned from Dean Jackson, which is what would you do if you got paid only after you delivered the result? So we'll delve into that and much, much more on this interview with Giovanni Marsico. Enjoy, everybody. You said this line right before where it's, I wanted to surround myself with people who are on the same trajectory as me. And we all know that thing, look at your 5 closest friends. You're the average of them. And if you don't like that, then go find a new network. So you went out and created this network. Could you share 1 or 2 stories with our listeners about something that you took away from either a talk or someone that you connected with that completely changed the course of your life?
Oh, wow. There's so many.
And if he's leaving you out, guys, he's not doing it on purpose.
Well, you know what? This whole thing sort of started. This is actually a funny story. Do you know who Dan Kennedy is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so while I was working as strategic coach, it was 2004, and Dan Sullivan said, we're going to work on this marketing project, this testimonial project, and one of our clients is going to help us. This guy's name is Joe Polish. And that's how I originally met Joe. So we flew out to Chicago. We worked on this project. Joe saw my passion for marketing. We really connected and we kept in touch. And then later that year, around March or April, he said, there's this big event happening in Scottsdale run by this guy named Dan Kennedy. And at the time, I knew nothing about internet marketing or direct response or any of these people. So I had no idea what to expect. He said, it's $1,000 a ticket. I'll cover your ticket if you can get yourself there. So I begged my boss. I said, you got to, please, this is going to be so good for the company if you send me down. And they let me go. And I got to sit with the most wackiest people on the planet. But it was at the event, Mark Victor Hansen was there. And I got to speak to him for 2 minutes. And he said something that changed everything. That's sort of the seed of Archangel. And he said, to be rich, you have to enrich. Meaning, if you want to get anything, you have to give first.
Wow.
Literally, that one line changed my whole life. And that's been the seed for Archangel, for everything I do in life, right? And so that was the first planting of that seed. And since then, there's been so much interesting things that happened. But if that to me, it changed everything. That was the one talk.
How old were you?
How old was I then?
Yeah.
2004, I was born in 76. I'm trying to figure this out.
I know, I do the same.
28, I think. 28.
28. Wow. Nice. So before that, you were doing just marketing, and that conversation at 28 really changed this path to now finding your passion and helping people and all that stuff. Did you find that before that you were kind of in it for me?
No, I've always been super giving. The difference is that I always thought of it as a weakness. because people would always take advantage of it. And that's where, surrounding yourself with the wrong people, if you're really giving and open-hearted, the wrong people will take advantage of that situation, and you feel like you're weak. And it was more recently that I discovered giving, having a big heart, is a strength if you surround yourself with people who are like you. Right? And I've always been involved with nonprofit stuff and charity stuff. And I was at one point the youngest president of a Rotary Club in Toronto. Like most Rotary clubs are seniors with white hair.
I was going to say, yeah, very, very old men.
I was in my 20s, and I joined a group where I think we were the smallest club. So we had 8 members. And by default, they said, well, you have to be president next year because there's only 8 of us, and we've all done it already. So I was like, shit. And so we were raising funds for orphanages in Albania. And one of my favorite projects, we had to raise money for an organization in Toronto that is for essentially blind children. So we said, well, they're blind, but they can hear. So let's do a concerto, we flew in a pianist from Italy, amazing concert. And we raised money for blind children, which was awesome. And I've always done stuff like that, always. And I have my own personal stories where I do these little anonymous things, but not on this scale. And now I really can scale the impact, which is what excites me the most.
Yeah, there's I don't remember who I heard this from. I want to say it's John Assaraf. I'm just going to give him credit anyway, where he was talking through the different levels of success. And I'd never heard the way he broke it down. I don't remember the exact levels, but it was, poverty, poverty, not financial. There's something before, financial freedom, which is like a certain level, wealth. And then the fourth one was impact.
Right.
Where, like you're saying, people that have not necessarily all the resources, but have a network whereby if they say we want to solve, like Bill Gates right now, he's solving malaria in all of Africa because all governments are doing nothing. Like, I have the resource, I'm going to go and do it. And I think the more entrepreneurs I talk to, once they get to a certain level, and once me is taken care of, then we now focus on others. And I just love that there's people like you, and I love that you're imbuing that in other entrepreneurs and kind of together, bubbling that to the surface, which I think entrepreneurs are the only way that we're going to heal this world.
Well, let me address that because it's something I'm passionate about. The traditional model is they become successful, they make a lot of money, they eventually give it all away. And that's the traditional philanthropy. Yep. And now that they're changing it a bit with things like Living Pledge, where they want to give it all away before they die or within a certain time frame after their passing. And my philosophy is, why not incorporate the philanthropy right from the start? Right when you start a company, have a way that every transaction creates impact. So you don't have to think about this after the fact. It's already embedded into the business model. And, a very traditional idea of that would be Tom's Shoes, where every time you buy a pair of shoes, someone else in need gets a pair of shoes. It doesn't have to be one-to-one model, but there's always opportunity to create the giving, the impact right in the business model, but not in a charitable way where you're not worrying about making money, in a way where you literally make a fortune and a difference at the same time. And that's what I want to share. That's my message. That's what Archangel is, because I think you can do both. And, I heard this funny saying, who was it? Simon Sinek, I think, said this, where it's not about making a shitload of money. If Mother Teresa made $300 million, no one will complain, right? If Nelson Mandela made 100, it's what you do with it and how it impacts people that people care about. And when you're the head of a giant bank that is screwing your clients or your customers, and your CEO is taking all these big things, that's what pisses people off. It's not the amount. It's what happens after the fact. And I think if you build something that creates impact more than money, but the money's $1 billion, it doesn't really matter.
The funny part is, to me, I always, and not always, but when I was younger, whether it was listening to Wayne Dyer or just doing a lot of different work, I recontextualize what money is. And right now, okay, let's go back to kind of caveman days, right? If you were the guy that killed the boar, that fed the village, you're getting the best piece of meat, right? That's not even a question. Other people are giving you their vegetables. They're throwing wives at you. Like, you're that guy. Why? Because you delivered value to the community. Today, even if you're looking at athletes, these guys are getting paid so much money, and musicians and et cetera. We're paying like $200 a ticket to go see these guys. All it is you're saying, I appreciate and love what you do for me. Like, I'm giving you my money because that today is the way that we thank and acknowledge people. Sorry. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
He's asking you a question.
Hi, you.
I'm good. This is officially the best interview ever.
Aaliyah, you've now been on probably 3 podcasts. I think you got to come up with some new material because you keep singing the same song. Okay. All right. She has this thing now where she sees the mic here and she just loves to sing. So every time she'll like come and just like rip the mic down. She's like, I want to sing Diana.
What's her name?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, which actually means in Hebrew to ascend, to elevate.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Ascension's my favorite word.
I know. So that's it was a really crazy story. When we had our first son, we went to this kind of like numerologist person, and she had told us that we're going to have another kid very, very quick because our son signed a contract with this other one. And she was coming to help him fulfill his mission. And so we were looking for names, and Aaliyah basically means to like ascend, to elevate. And I was like, I mean, come on, could it be any more perfect? I was like, done. Wow, she totally took me out of rhythm, and I totally forgot what I was saying. About money. Oh, yeah. So I think today the difference is money. That's the way that we can say, I value what you are doing for the world. And I remember being very young and just realizing my bank account will grow by the virtue of how much value I can provide in the world. So when our business was struggling, all I kept thinking was, just give more value, give more value, give more value. There is no way. It is I don't know, a universal law, but in my world, it's a universal law. You do that without expecting anything in return, you will get abundance beyond belief. Right. And your whole mission, your whole ethos, everything that you've built is almost built on that one thing. Brilliant. I mean,
I'm a huge fan of language and words, meaning, and I looked up the root of the word currency.
Currency, okay.
What is currency? And it comes from the same root as current. And it just blew me away because it literally translates into something that flows, right? Like electric current or the current of a river. And money is considered something that flows. And I was like, oh, that's so brilliant, right?
And then there's those that hold and but you're stopping that current.
Right. Resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gio, let's, can I call you Gio? I like that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, cool. You are surrounded by incredible people who are obviously always giving you probably incredible resources, whether incredible books or incredible, experiences. Are there a couple of things that you could share with the listeners that have just been very impactful, whether it's a book, a tool, a seminar, something that you've learned recently?
Yeah. So the top book I read last year, and I read usually a book a week. I'm a fiend for that kind of thing. And was a book called Contagious by Jonah Berger.
Okay.
Read that yet, but it's essentially what makes things viral and how can you hack virality in a way that makes sense. And he has these 6 pillars that he talks about. And it totally changed everything. And I really applied that to how I built the Archangel Academy. And I just signed him to speak at my next event next year because it was just so impactful to me. Right. And same with Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Morning. I don't know if you've read that yet, but
no,
how to create morning routines in such a way that has the most impact. So those two books, along with the 5-Minute Journal, are probably the 3 books that really changed and impacted me last year. And the 5-Minute Journal is a journal that you use right in the morning and right before bed, 3 minutes and 2 minutes. And it's essentially a gratitude journal talking about what you're grateful for and shifting your mindset into gratitude, which changes everything. And those are the 3 books that have had the most impact on me last year.
We actually had UJ on here probably, it was a while back, right after he was recovering from his crazy accident.
Right.
It was a nuts interview. I mean, we got really deep in there because there's a lot of just what he's learned from basically a near-death experience. It was pretty incredible. I know we were going to be talking about 5-Minute Journal, but it ended up being just really, really amazing stuff.
Yeah, UJ is a really good friend of mine. He lives here in Toronto with me, and I also asked him to speak next year about the journal.
He's amazing.
Another amazing, I guess, resource or talk. I don't know if you know Dean Jackson.
Yeah.
So he spoke at the last 25K annual event, and he said something that blew me away. He said, how would things change in your business if you got paid after delivering a result? And just the paradigm shift of thinking, how that would change the relationship with the client. So for fun, as an experiment, 3 weeks ago, I was at an event in Toronto for all these local entrepreneurs who were a lot of startups, people who are very purpose-driven. And I think there were 30, 40 people in the room. They went around the room introducing themselves, saying what they're excited about and what their biggest challenge is. And one of the most common challenges was sales.
Obviously,
often people who are very giving aren't very good at asking for things.
Yep.
And it just dawned on me that since I was 18, I used to take door-to-door sales jobs just for the training because it was so good. I used to do MLM stuff just for the training.
Me too.
I've been in so many roles where I was learning how to sell. And even as strategic coach, I was on the marketing team, but whenever the sales team had training, I would sit in because I was so interested. And I learned so much about sales that I just put up my hand and I said, would it be valuable if I did a 2-hour workshop sharing all the best sales tools I've ever learned? And like, oh my God, yes. And because of this community, a lot of them have a lot of money. I thought, okay, I'll just do it for free. And then I smacked myself thinking, how hypocritical would it be for me to do a sales workshop for free?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So I thought of Dean Jackson. I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. You don't have to pay anything to show up. I want you to come, spend the 2 hours with me, and then after the fact, pay me whatever you can afford and whatever you think is worth. I've always wanted to do this, and I finally did it. And it was actually really fun. And some people brought checks, and they just wrote me checks afterwards, and others just sent me electronic money transfers. But it was a really interesting experiment. And
I'm curious, were people paying you on par with what you thought you would have, quote unquote, charged?
I had no expectation because to me, a lot of these people in this group they don't have a lot of cash flow. So, $20 each would have been happy to, I don't care. And the average, I think, worked out to right now $109 for 2 hours, which I thought was kind of cool.
Per person. Like they would.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really good. You probably would have charged, knowing them with all your stories, you probably would have charged them less than that.
Oh, I would have. Yeah. And the interesting part is the ones who I thought would need the workshop the least are the ones who paid the most.
Huh.
And my thinking around it is that when I shared, like the stuff I shared was insanely amazing and killer, but you almost have to be somewhat successful to understand the value of what you're getting, right? Because if you're not, then there's all that mindset crap again. Well, this guy is successful in this business, so he can do this stuff. I can't do this stuff. There's always that negative talk that happens. And I think a lot of that was happening with some people in the group. Whereas, one guy was actually a sales trainer and he paid the most money.
Yeah.
Which, again, is like, wow, I'd never expected that.
It's also, we were talking about books, and I like to read certain books time and time again. It's almost as you're climbing up the mountain, when you were 18 and maybe you read Think and Grow Rich or something, and then you read it again today, it almost feels like a completely different book because your challenges are completely different. Your mindset is completely different. The things you pull from it, you would have never picked out the intricacies back then. You maybe got the idea, but now when you're in it, it's just a whole different level.
1,000,000%. And funny you mentioned that because I was introduced to Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits when I was 18 at a sales training. And that's when I was introduced to self-development, and thank goodness I did that, right?
Oh,
but again, reading Napoleon Hill now is 180 degrees different.
Yeah.
And you pull it so much more that, now I get this.
Exactly. You're almost thinking, I read these books sometimes and I go, what did I even get from this? I can't, it opens your eyes, but as far as technical and really deep insights, it just goes and goes and goes. I'd be curious, to read that book 20, 30 years from now and see what we're saying about it then, because certain things are so tried and true in these books that I'm sure it blows your mind every single time.
Another great example, working as strategic coach, I got to learn all the tools they teach as an employee. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. But it wasn't until I was a client where everything was relevant that I was like, holy crap, this is powerful stuff.
Exactly.
It's so simple but powerful, and you don't get it until you have relevance, right? It's like learning a new language and understanding the fluency of the language.
Exactly. Or, I use the example of you could read 1,000,000 books about shooting a basketball into a hoop. You could literally read 1,000,000, but you go onto the court, it doesn't make you a better basketball player. No. However, then you go and you suck at basketball for 6 months, and then you pick up one of those books, it'll change your life.
Right.
So in the doing, and that's what we at SatoriPrime, we always, when we teach someone Facebook, our biggest hurdle was always that we were selling info products and people weren't getting results, and it was really frustrating. And so we realized we were not putting them in a context whereby they have to do the work. And so once we started going into more of a mastermind type thing where we're with them, multiple times a month and giving them the homework and then looking at their homework and work, people's results, it went from 5% of people getting results to 95% of people getting results just by the virtue of the context.
Right.
Very, very different. All right. So let me ask you the final question we ask everyone here. I'm really curious what you're going to say. There's that cliche of, I wish I knew then what I know now. So is there something that you wish you would have known, 10, 15, 20 years ago that you would have gone back and told yourself?
Oh, 1,000,000%. And I struggled so much in the past 20 years of trying to do everything myself and trying to figure out everything myself. And if I went back to speak to me 20 years ago, I would say, find someone who's already done the thing you want to do and be their bitch. Like literally, if you have to work for free for a year, just work for free and surround yourself with them and watch them, because learning that way from a mentor or coach, whatever term you want to use, is infinitely greater than, like you just mentioned, reading 1,000,000 books about throwing a basketball. Standing on the court with Michael Jordan, I don't care if you didn't read any books, is better than reading 1,000,000 books. And that's what I would have taught myself, because I was hard-headed and thought, well, if I just read all these books, I will do better. But the other thing that changed my life was the Napoleon Hill mastermind concept, where sitting in a room with people who are ahead of you on your path, that it's the same principle, but now there's a group instead of one individual. And I've learned more from that concept and being in groups, like we're all in Brotherhood and Mastermind Talks and 5K and Strategic Coach and my own group, and even the people I surround myself with. There's nothing like that in terms of success and growth. Yeah. So that's what I always tell myself. Like, find those people now, even if you're 15 years old, and just sit with them.
Couldn't agree more. It's really interesting. I want to ask you this kind of follow-up question, because I know you have a 9-year-old kid. I was actually thinking of asking you before that question, if knowing what your experience was at Dan Sullivan Academy would you now put your son into a situation like that as an educational tool for him to go there for, like, they don't even have to pay him, but just send him there for free to actually experience and be around that? And you kind of answered that with this question.
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm not relying on his school to teach him anything. He's there more for socialization and that aspect because he's super gifted. So I spend a lot more time with him after school, giving him so many tools and experiences, because I'm not pushing him in any direction. I just want to give him opportunities that most kids wouldn't have, so that he can experience things and figure out what his passions are. And part of the Archangel idea for the future would be to start some kind of thing for kids, where it's almost like even if it's a summer camp for a week, where all of our kids can get together in a place and have fun, but be around each other, right? And the smartest thing I've ever done for him so far, I don't know if you know who Jim Shields is.
No.
But they have a retreat they call board meetings, and it's a play on words. The word board means surfboard. So they get 15 to 20 entrepreneurs, and each entrepreneur brings one child. And it's a 4 or 5 day thing for them. In the mornings, you're learning how to surf. And then in the afternoons, you're doing masterminding type concepts, either the adults together and then the kids together, or everyone together as a group. And it's all about bonding the entrepreneur with their child, but then also putting the kids together. That was the most mind-blowing thing I've ever done. And if anyone's listening to this, look up boardmeetings.com. If you have a kid between, let's say, 10 and 20 years old, you will connect on a level that's unbelievable.
You could do almost like a Archangel Junior.
Right. Well, the original name I had was Archangel Academy for Gifted Entrepreneurs. And I stole that from X-Men. I don't know if you ever watched.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I use the analogy often that I'm kind of like Professor X. His role is to go out, find mutants, people who have what they think is a curse, but it's a gift, and teach them how to use that to be a superhero and save the world. In my case, I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking for what I call angels, who are entrepreneurs that have big hearts and want to change the world, show them how to use that as their gift, connect them together as a team like the X-Men, right? For the purpose of making the world better. And I always wanted to do a school, like he has the Xavier's Academy for Gifted Youngsters.
Yeah.
I want to do the exact same thing, because to me, the traditional educational model is very broken. And imagine what would happen if we were teaching our kids what we know now.
Unbelievable. By the way, you should connect. Do you know Steve Sisler?
I met him at Mastermind Talks.
Yeah. I just interviewed him a while back. He's brilliant. And we actually had a conversation about kids, how this applies to kids and parents interacting with their kids. It was a really, really mind-blowing conversation that could definitely, whether it's Jim Shields or, you personally, I think for any kid, you can basically give them the answers. But once your kid's almost there, I think at 11, he could do kind of the behavioral analysis. And then you can interact with the kid based on their emotional needs and desires, rather than trying to dictate how their life should go. You just have an attuned ear to listen to what their needs are. And then you just kind of grow and develop them that way. It was really incredible to listen to that process.
I will definitely ask him about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are connected. Gio, absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. I mean, it's interesting, and I've never said this to anyone on this podcast before. I feel like you're a few years ahead of me, but doing exactly what my heart always calls me to do. I just feel very connected to you and you as a soul, but you as a purpose and you as an idea in the world. So really, really thank you for sharing with our listeners and with me personally.
Thank you. And if there was a way to do some kind of virtual hug thing, I'd be hugging you.
we could do the Care Bear thing. Gio, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Archangel.club will be the place in a few weeks, depends on when this gets released. And there's also archangelacademy2016.com, and that's specifically for the event.
Where's the next one?
Next one, LA, January 28th and 29th, LA area. Usually around Hollywood, Beverly Hills, somewhere in that area.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much, Gio. And from one man to another, I do love you.
Love you too.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my